For generations, the medical consensus on cancer was straightforward. It was a disease of aging. On this timeline of a typical 80-year life, the risk profile is predictable. It takes decades for cellular errors to compound, meaning mutations usually cluster here, in the later stages of life. But doctors tracking global oncology data are seeing a significant disruption. That timeline is shifting backward. There is a sharp, accelerating surge in gastrointestinal, breast, and pancreatic cancers appearing in adults in their 20s and 30s. The profiles of these patients challenge the standard models. Many are outwardly fit, they don't smoke, and their medical files show zero family history of the disease. An abrupt change on this scale rules out genetics as the primary driver. Human DNA does not change across an entire global population in a matter of a few decades. Since our genetic code remains stable, we have to look at the environment. Something in the way we live every single day is putting our human biology on a faster track toward disease. The investigation starts with what we consume. Over the last half-century, we have seen a dietary overhaul toward highly processed, low-nutrient convenience foods. This shift led directly to widespread chronic overeating. We now see rising obesity rates establishing themselves much earlier in life, often beginning during childhood and the teenage years. To understand the cancer link, we have to look at the behavior of fat cells. It is a mistake to view body fat as dormant weight. It functions as a biologically active organ that alters metabolic health and disrupts insulin signaling. This disruption drives chronic inflammation throughout the body. That constant inflammatory state acts as a biological fertilizer, creating an environment where abnormal cells thrive and multiply years earlier than they should. Human tissue is only part of the equation.
We also have to account for the trillions of bacteria living inside our digestive system, the gut microbiome. That ecosystem has taken a measurable hit in the modern era. A steep drop in dietary fiber, combined with systemic medical interventions like the overuse of antibiotics, has depleted our internal bacterial diversity. These microbes are essential for survival. They actively regulate our immune function and help suppress the biological pathways that lead to tumor growth. This comparison illustrates the breakdown. A healthy bacterial barrier blocks pathogens, but in a depleted system, those inflammatory signals pass through the weakened defense and into the bloodstream. By altering our internal microbial landscape, modern lifestyles have stripped away a critical biological shield, leaving the gastrointestinal tract vulnerable to early-onset disease. We also need to examine our daily routines. Humans evolved for constant movement, yet we have abruptly transitioned into a sedentary, screen-dominated indoor existence. Continuous exposure to artificial light and chronic sleep disruption exacts a measurable physiological toll. It throws our immune systems and metabolic regulation into a state of continuous imbalance. Add to that an inescapable modern reality: constant, low-level exposure to thousands of environmental chemicals, industrial compounds, and airborne pollutants. This surge follows a logic of accumulation. Risks from our diet, our environment, and our habits stack together over years, eventually accelerating cellular damage much faster than any single exposure could alone. There is no single smoking gun. What we are seeing is a compounding effect, a barrage of modern exposures that compresses the timeline of cellular damage. The statistics demand we reconsider what we know.
We can no longer categorize cancer simply as a consequence of getting old or a matter of bad luck. This shift shows that cancer is increasingly behaving as a lifestyle disease, a measurable result of how our modern environment exerts pressure on our biological systems. While the science is still evolving, the data confirms that young adults can no longer assume they are automatically immune to these risks. This requires a clear medical directive. Young people must discard the bias of youth. Persistent, unexplained symptoms like chronic fatigue, ongoing pain, or unusual bleeding should never be dismissed. With the window for risk opening so much earlier, our strategy for survival has to adapt. In this new landscape, aggressive vigilance and early detection are our most reliable defenses.